everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney Classics podcast, and we are here to talk about Melody Time. This is the, sorry, now I lost it. It's, which number is this? Is the 10th?
It's the 10th.
Yeah.
The 10th, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the 10th animated feature film from Walt Disney Animation Studios, and I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford is here.
Hey, how's it going?
Yes, I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thank you. So excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah. So this is one of the package films. And what do they mean when they say package films?
You know, after World War II, the Walt Disney Studios was doing a major regroup.
Yeah.
And so instead of releasing just like one full-length feature film, a la Snow White, you know, they did a bunch of shorts and then put them together, and then they were able to distribute or release those in theaters. So you get a full length feature. You know, I mean, you get a movie that was basically as long as a feature film, maybe kind of short, but still, you know, almost like an hour, right, or a little over an hour. But it wasn't as taxing on the studio. So kind of a way for them to get some money, get some cash flow going.
Yeah.
And also, but do some interesting things artistically too.
And especially with Make My Music, it definitely feels like picking up the old, the the scraps of projects that have been abandoned and then going back to them, which I actually really enjoy because there's sort of this, I don't know, there's this weird experimental kind of feel to it because they were that way. And this maybe not quite as much as Make My Music, but it still definitely has some experimental aspects to it, which is fun to see.
Yeah, I think so too, because the music selections are interesting, and you know, in a way, to me, it feels almost like a more popular music version of Fantasia. Yeah.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you, because would you consider this and Make My Music, would you consider them Fantasia segments? You know, because they obviously had like then Fantasia 2000, they had the Little Match Girl, which is basically a Fantasia piece. They had, you know, they're just, you know, music and characters for the most part, although some of these do have a little bit of dialogue, at least narrators and things like that. Johnny Appleseed has some speaking, but I don't know, would you consider these sort of Fantasia pieces?
I think a couple of them could possibly be. In that, just you're saying, these other ones are so reliant. I mean, the visuals are good, but they're so reliant on a narrative. I mean, on some kind of narration. Excuse me. Because these songs are all telling stories, you know, and so. So what I had read, and we'll get to it, one of them is that Bumble Boogie, which is that Flight of the Bumblebee piece. That was possibly considered for Fantasia. Yeah. At least according to some of the stuff I've read.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also could see the trees one.
Yes, absolutely. And then I was going to say that trees, at least artistically, sure looks like it could have been put in, even though I know it's got a song that's with lyrics in it. You know, it's not just a purely orchestral number. Yes,
that's true. That's true.
What do you think about it? I mean, is it Fantasia? You know, could this work as a?
I mean, I guess I never really thought about them having lyrics being a barrier, but I think the ones that's it's just music and a story as opposed to having actual lines and characters and things. I don't see why that couldn't fit into sort of a Fantasia. If you were going to have a Fantasia festival,
yes,
I think you could probably have them included, because that was originally their goal to do with Fantasia.
Right.
That they were going to keep making them every couple of years, and
which would have been really cool.
It would have been amazing. And I have a secret hope that maybe we might get something like that with Disney Plus. I would love that. I mean,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if if they were, because basically all of the Pixar shorts are basically like Fantasia shorts. Almost none of them have dialogue of any kind.
Right.
And so if we were able to get some of that from Walt Disney Studios, like they're doing now with the Spark shorts, that would be so cool.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, that's for sure. But
make it so.
Yeah. And we already reviewed the Saludos Amigos and the Three Caballeros on this podcast. So you want to check that out. We did that in December. So we got the random number generator gave us Melody Time this month. We also did Frozen 2 this month. So kind of got a double header. And what was your experience kind of rewatching this film, Melody Time?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen it, since my big canon rewatch, which I did in 2011. But I had so much fun. I don't love all of the package films. Particularly, I believe It's Fun and Fancy Free is kind of not really my favorite. But this one, most every single one of these numbers, there are 7, segments.
Yeah.
And each one just was delightful. I just thought, I love this. I love it. Just as they kept coming, because I decided I watched it cold too, Rachel. I didn't review what were the segments. Although I was reminded during the opening credits, because they tell you who the performers are, because most of these performers were, I think, very popular performers of the day.
Yeah.
And
the Andrews sisters.
Yeah, the Andrews sisters. Fred Waring and the Pennsylvania. I'll have some stuff to talk about that when we get to that segment. But Roy Rogers, who I think was a huge star at the time. And anyway, so that was that. I think was, so it was fun. I just had a blast. I loved it.
Me too. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy, especially we'll talk about the Legend of Johnny Appleseed. I love that short, and on lots of levels. I'm really excited to talk about that. But it was just delightful. It was really fun, and so I'm excited to talk about it. And so this film was released in 1948. So it was right during I forget when the war actually ended. It's pretty close to then, right?
Yeah, well, 1945, and then okay. I'm not sure when Disney stopped actually making movies, for the U.S. government. If how long that went, if that went into 46 and 47, or if then they were able to start to be able to do their own thing. But I guess this is the second to the last of the package features, because isn't The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, that's considered a package film too, isn't it? Even though it's just two longer, kind of longer shorts.
That one is in 1949. So you're absolutely right.
And then Cinderella in 1950.
Right. Yeah. And this is available on Disney Plus.
It's on Disney Plus, and kind of I guess a restored version that they're playing on Disney Plus, which I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, particularly with Pecos Bill.
I never thought I'd be so excited about smoking.
Yeah, right. That's right. Right. Yes. And so let's dive in and talk about each of the shorts. And so it starts out with Once Upon a Winter Song.
Wintertime, I believe.
Oh, oops, sorry. Once Upon a Wintertime, and it's Frances Langford.
Yes, which I'd never heard of her before, which again doesn't mean anything, but she's got a very pretty voice. I mean, I like the segment.
Yeah, it's probably maybe my least favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's my least favorite of the 7, but I don't know what it was this time. I think I was just admiring the animation.
It definitely has a career and Ives feel to it, and I love Christmas, so it's fun enough with the style and the animation, and you have this couple that's out skating, and there's rabbits that kind of follow them, and the girl kind of ventures onto thin ice because she's mad at the guy, and then she ends up the whole ice ends up breaking apart, and all of a sudden turns into this giant waterfall.
Very dramatic.
It is, and the horses actually end up saving the day.
It's the animals. The animals save the day because both the human boy and the rabbit boy, they've passed out. They can't take it. Yeah, and I guess the couple is Joe and Jenny. Okay.
So things get pretty dicey for them. Pretty quick.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's a big part of it. It gets a little over dramatic for me as like a brother, but I still was just really wowed by the really. I love the animation of this era from Disney because just the clean lines, and this one was almost a bit. It reminded me. In fact, I meant to do some research, but it reminded me almost of the Ivan Earl style that he did for Sleeping Beauty, although this is much more simple and clean.
Yeah,
and more graphic in style, but still, I mean, I just love like just those trees. It's just like these series of white trees, and you just like the trunks and the branches against the blue sky. But it just is beautiful, and in its clean simplicity. And I love the character designs, and so that part was really fun. But that whole waterfall rescue, I was like, okay, let's get this over with.
It overstays its welcome a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, it almost reminds me. I think it's through Caballeros that has the Christmas short.
Yeah.
With the firelight processional.
Right.
Candlelight processional. And so it's always nice when Disney goes to Christmas.
Yeah.
Really nice. And then we have Bumble Boogie, which you'd mentioned.
Yes.
And so this is basically a bee that is trying to kind of fight off these keys and instruments that are kind of attacking him.
Yes.
Is the best way I can think to explain
it.
Perfect.
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's to Flight of the Bumblebee. And it's Freddie Martin and his orchestra that is accompanying, and it's really fun. It definitely has sort of a Elephants on Parade kind of feel to it, I think.
Yeah, because it gets quite surreal. And this music is this, the Flight of the Bumblebee, this arrangement of Flight of the Bumblebee is almost, it's got like a jazz rhythm to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's also, I mean, this is the one, as we previously mentioned about being included in Fantasia or like even a future version of Fantasia, because it would totally fit. Because again, an instrumental piece, and then these really surreal and stylistic visuals that I think are really fun. I love this one. I just so impressed with the animation and how it just lines up so perfectly with the rhythm of the music. Yeah.
I do too. I love the colors and just the speed of the animation, how it just fits the song so perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think it could have actually been a really fun addition to Fantasia, because I love Fantasia, but they could use maybe one more, not that most people would be like, you want it longer, but I think they could have used one more sort of more upbeat taste song or piece in it. I think maybe a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. The bee I think the design of the bee itself is really fun because it's very cartoony, but it really works, I think, just within the context of the whole piece.
Yeah.
And I wondered about what that was like to animate. I bet the animators had a lot of fun with that. It looked, just because it was just so almost just like truly the sky was the limit on them, just like whatever they wanted to do, however they wanted to represent these, particular notes and rhythms and things, and the instruments. Really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is when you really started to see the influence of Salvador Dali and the surrealists, the influence of them on the Disney animators. I mean, you'd seen some earlier, but I mean, obviously with elephants on parade and things, but they did just that kind of style. You definitely see that was very influential on
Yeah.
I guess that Disney and Dolly evidently first met in 1944, and you can just start to see that influence on the of the animators for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me, especially when we talk about this trees one.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Which is kind of the other quite surreal, type of, or very, very yeah,
Yeah.
kind of artsy fartsy.
Right.
Right.
Yes. And so then next we have the longer one of the longer ones, and it is The Legend of Johnny Appleseed.
Yes.
And so it's we get Dennis Day as our narrator in the story, and he's also voices the guardian angel
Yes.
and and Johnny in the movie. And I don't know anything about Dennis Day. Was he a pretty big star?
I don't know much about Dennis Day either. I think he was, a popular radio personality, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, of the time. But honestly, I don't know much about him
Yeah.
either. I don't know how. I mean, maybe he did some movies, but again, I'll have to look it up because I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like I'm seeing on Wikipedia. There are some movies, but it looks like he did a more television work.
Oh,
And
okay.
then he even had a show, I guess, the Dennis Day Show.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, in the 50s. And
Yeah.
he was involved with the Jack Benny program, Bing Crosby, things like that I guess
Okay.
a lot of. So it's interesting. But so yeah, I love this short. I think it's so great on kind of every level. I love the animation. It has definitely a Grandma Moses feel,
Yes.
folk art feel, and
Yes.
especially the way they animate or they just have these long kind of vistas shots of the prairie, I guess, of the
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of the American frontier.
yeah,
Yes.
the frontier with the when you start to see the apple trees, and it almost it kind of reminds me of the like the the popcorn popping on the apricot tree song that we sing
Yeah.
in church.
Yeah.
It just has that kind of puffy feel, and there's literally scenes where the blossoms of the apple trees merge into the clouds, and they basically kind of become one, and
Oh,
it's so beautiful. I
isn't
love
that
it.
beautiful? I adore this short and as well, and I'm with you. The style is so interesting. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I was trying to look up some of the. I saw some art online. I was just just Googled Googled it, and some of it was attributed to Mary, the Disney legend Mary Blair.
Oh yeah,
And which would make sense because I think it was some of that folk art kind of style that you just described so well. And I'm with you. I love the look of it, and I think Dennis Day does a very nice job. I mean, they've given him a good script too. I mean, he's got good things to say, and the song the song is delightful. There's a lot of work to do song, and I I find the whole story very inspiring, and it's just again just pure delight, really.
Yeah, I mean, because this would have been like peak Grandma Moses, because she didn't start painting until she was pretty old.
Yes.
And if you look at her, a lot of her paintings were done on like on tin or on steel or on like not on canvas, and I don't know, they just have that same, especially the vistas, the landscapes, I guess, I don't know what you call them, anyway, feel very similar to me to what she would do. And I'm sure there's many other folk artists, that's just the one I know the best. But
I
really
really
love it.
I do too, and I really appreciate, I mean, to your point, that's the kind of look they were going for
Yeah,
this really wonderful American folktale.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
to use that folk art is appropriate. You know, the Disney artists used it again, I think, in a really nice way. Have you seen that John Henry short that came out? I
Yeah.
believe it was in the late 90s,
Yeah, I
maybe.
love that short.
I do too. I love
So
it.
good.
And I mean, it's somewhat different, but then also somewhat similar, though, don't you think? As far as just
Mm-hmm.
again, kind of
Yeah.
using a folk art style to tell this meaningful,
Yeah, definitely
yeah,
story.
story.
I think that's a very good comparison. And so I do also, like you said, love the song "The Lord is Good to Me," and it's just such a sweet, catchy song.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like his kind of redneck guardian angel. It's
Oh, I
funny.
love it. Yeah, the angel's great. Yeah. And it's cool that that Dennis Day. I mean, he's got some skills. He's
Yeah,
able
he
to
does.
he's able to
Yeah.
pull off these different voices. I think quite effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's his faith, courage, and a level head, and that's all you need. And because he feels like, oh, he can't go out west because he's just not skilled enough. He's not strong enough. He's not big enough. What could he do? And he says, well, all I can do is just plant these apple trees. And it kind of makes me laugh because if somebody were to say, name the first thing you think of when you think of apples, what would you say?
Apple pie.
Apple pie. Yeah, apple pie or apple sauce, I think would probably be
Yeah.
the top if you were doing Family Feud.
Right.
That would probably be the top two answers
Yeah,
people surveyed,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But I always think it's really funny that the very first thing he says is apple pickles. What?
I know. Like, I thought this was like, what are those?
I know. I looked it up. So
Oh wow, what are
yes,
they?
I looked up apple pickles. They sound delicious. It's I mean, I guess it's kind of like a sweet pickle in a way, but it has 1 cup of water, 1 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1 cup of sugar. Then you have you basically have like pickling spices, allspice, cloves, nutmeg, ginger, and then
Ooh.
6 apples sliced, and then 1/2 cup of lemon juice. And,
Oh,
yeah. So
yum. I bet those are
I
delicious.
know. So next activity we'll make
Right.
your
Doing
house.
apple pickles.
Yes.
For
And
sure.
yeah.
You'll
And
have to send me that recipe,
I
Rach.
will. I will. I'll put a link on the description too.
Awesome. Okay.
But I just always thought that was so funny that and then they say it again. When they're having the sign of the second song with
Yeah.
like the potluck or whatever,
Yes.
and they're like, and our apple pickles. And I'm like, what is going on here? They laugh because they say apple pickles, apple tarts, apple dumplings, apple sauce, apple fritters, apple cider, and then stew them, fry them, boil them, bake them. And then they say apple pie, finally, apple cake, and then apple butter is the last one that they have.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And thanks for capturing those because that's so fun. That's so fun.
Yeah.
I just speaking of again, like with the Once Upon a Wintertime. Well, I'd say with Bumble Boogie too, but I love these character designs and Johnny Appleseed. I think is so great because I love how simple they kept it, but it's meaningful. I mean, and I
Yeah.
mean, I know that's part of the folktale, but he's just got his bag of seeds, his Bible, and then that pan that he wears as a hat.
Yeah.
And again, I know part of the folktale, but it's so effective, and they just ace that design, and then also. You know what a sucker I am for forest friends. So that when he's, I mean, it's just like the Snow White, but it's so cute how all the animals love him and will follow him around and it's so great.
The whole scene with the skunk is super cute.
Is that the cutest thing or what?
Yeah.
It's so cute
Because he has no knife, no gun.
Yeah.
And he's able to just be friendly to the skunk.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to hurt these animals at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says he was planting kindness, courage, and more. And so they he walked and planted for 40 years. And then at the end, his spirit separates from his body. And he says, that's just your mortal husk, Johnny. And he says, your work down here is through, but we need you to plant apple trees up there. And then he says, the clouds aren't really clouds at all, but Johnny's apple trees in heaven.
Yeah.
Which is super cute.
I love that,
like that
too. It's really, it's a really inspirational story. And, of course, very heavy on the Christianity, which resonates with me because that's my faith. But I, clearly they couldn't get away with something like that today. But still, I don't think it's heavy-handed.
No.
And I just find it inspirational.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that's sad if they couldn't. It's true they couldn't do it today, but like it's frustrating because that's just one character expressing their view, but there's never any sense at all of Johnny enforcing or pressing that view onto anyone else.
He's just he's serving others is what he's doing.
Yeah, and so he's just singing that to make him feel cheerful, and so that's kind of frustrating. It's kind of similar to me of like, I don't understand how anyone could be offended by Linus in Charlie Brown Christmas, because when he recites Luke 2, because he's not saying that's what everyone else has to think. He's saying this is what I think. Yeah. And so how can you be offended by somebody expressing what they believe?
Right.
Like it's as simple as that. And if you take it out, then it takes out all of the heart, because they're just going through the motions and not kind of letting these characters express fully who they are and what matters to them. Right.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes more bland. And so I've always thought, man, they better never change that in Charlie Brown, because that's the emotional core of the whole movie.
It is. That's what it is. That's the core of the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love Johnny Appleseed. I think it is
I do too.
Such a good short.
I think it's my favorite short of the whole thing. Although I like most of these, but yeah, it's by far my favorite.
Yeah, me too. So all right, the next we have one called Little Toot, and this has the Andrews sisters, and I think this is very similar to Pedro from
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And this one, it's a little not tow truck, little
he's a tugboat.
Tugboat. Whereas in Pedro and Three Caballeros is a little plane, but it's kind of similar. And they basically he wants to be like the big tugboats, and he is kind of fighting with the big ships, and it causes the giant ship to crash onto the city, and so he's taken into custody by the police ships. It's a pretty dire thing.
It's very serious,
right?
Very, very serious. Yeah.
And his father tugs trash boats, so he's kind of embarrassed about that. And so while they send him to like basically like outer darkness. He's like way out.
I know.
Because of what he did. And he gets an SOS from a ship, and he says, try, do or die. And so that's pretty cute. And so Little Toot ends up saving the day. And
yay.
There you go.
This one is so cute. That's a perfect retelling. I thought, it is really much like Pedro. The little and just any of these stories about an underdog that gets that really is able then to come in and prove her or his worth. You know? But I had this book as a child. There's a book that it's based on. Little Toot was the name of it.
Yeah.
It's an illustrated children's book, and it was You know, it's just a book we had in my
Is
house.
it one of the gold books, or is it a separate book?
Well, I'm not sure if it was a little golden book or not. It might have been, but it wasn't, you know, a quote unquote Disney book. It was written by, I mean, I've looked it up. It's by Hardy Gramatke. And of course, I don't remember the name of the author, but I believe that it's, you know, like it's on Amazon. You can buy, you know, you can buy this book. But I loved the book as a kid, and so this was just a fun adaptation of it. You know, just to see it. And the Andrews sisters, or I mean, they're the Andrews sisters. You know, it's just they're great harmonies. And
I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I think that they do provide a certain they definitely immediately throw you back to that era for sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's such a period piece, you know. And I'm with you there. I don't know if I could listen to like a whole album of Andrews sisters songs, but
it's a little too syrupy for me. A little too cheesy for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But they did this, and then they also do Alice Bluebonnet coming up in when we talk about fun. I think that's I
can't remember if that's in Melody Time or if that's in that's in Make Mine Music, or I think it is in Make Mine Music, but
I think so.
I'm not 100% sure.
And it's but I always whenever anybody says the Andrews sisters, I always think of in the North Avenue Irregulars, which is a movie I love, when they're on the stakeout and her tape starts. Starts playing, and then they're like, and then she's like, "We don't even look like the Andrews sisters." I love that. That's one of my favorites. And so we don't even look like them. So there you go. I probably like Little Toot better than Alice Bluebonnet, and just because
I don't love Alice Bluebonnet.
It's not my favorite.
No, I don't like that one either that much.
That one in the Pixar short with the umbrellas that fall in love. Those are like, I can handle robots. I can handle quite a bit of things falling in love, but for some reason I draw the line at hats and
hats and umbrellas.
Yeah, that's it. I can't suspend my disbelief that much, evidently. I don't know. but anyway, and so then next we have Trees, that we talked about a little bit. This is artist Ken O'Connor who did this one, layout artist, and it's pretty cool. They used frosted cells and to make the images look kind of pastel, and so it gave before being photographed, each cell was laminated in clear lacquer to protect the pastel look. The result was a look that had never been seen in animation before, and it definitely has a very Dali-esque feel. You could almost see sort of these trees kind of melting with the way that it's designed, and it's has Fred Waring and the Pennsylvanians. And so I think it's an interesting short. I mean, I don't know. I guess I do like a little bit more story than just this, but it's still it's beautiful, you know, just as an art piece.
Yeah, it is. It's an art piece. I agree. I thought, and thanks for that explanation on the animation, because I thought the colors and the really unique. It's very it's very striking. So Fred Waring and the Pennsylvanians. So the choir I sing in, we actually sing an arrangement that Fred Waring did.
Oh, really?
It's of Irving Berlin's "God Bless America." But Fred Waring had he was again a popular, I guess, arranger and performer, and I don't know if it was always with the Pennsylvanians, but he had a radio show, and that style, you know, just vocal harmony, but it's both with both men and women, and so the sound is, you know, again different than the Andrews sisters, for example.
Right.
But again, you can tell it's of that era, clearly too. But also Fred Waring, he was an inventor. And I don't know if you've ever seen Waring appliances like in the store, like toasters and stuff. But
Oh
but
yeah.
that's his company.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so he was
Huh.
both a musician and then a bit of a uh, product designer or an industrialist or
Some
whatever.
people get all the talent.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, that's
That's cool.
that's for Jeopardy night or
Yeah,
whatever,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
This trees, again, it goes into the Christian symbolism and just which again I think is interesting. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, you're
wow,
right. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, and
'Cause that's in the poem.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
and then they don't the trees kind of form a cross near the end on top of a hill,
Hmm.
and just think, wow,
Yeah,
interesting. I
that
don't
is
think
interesting.
they'd be making that today,
No, I
but
don't think
but
so.
uh, but anyway,
Yeah.
again, like, very much a film of its time.
Yeah. So then we have Blame It on the Samba. This
Yeah,
is, I think, the last time that we see Jose.
yeah, Jose Carioca. Our
Because I think he has a little thing in Make My Music. The Bahia,
Oh yeah,
I think, is in Make My Music. And then, and obviously he's in both Saludos Amigos and Three Caballeros. And then one piece in Make My Music and one piece here. And so this Blame It on the Samba, and you have Donald Duck and Jose Carioca. They meet an Aracuan bird.
okay, I wanted to ask you, does that bird have a name? I mean, I just say I need to look it up in one of these Disney reference books I have. It's like I've just wondered, is this a character? Is this a character? Or is this just kind of like a one-off?
According to Wikipedia, which is how knowledge, it says the Arcuan bird, also known as the clown of the jungle, first appeared in the feature film The Three Caballeros. And it says, despite his apparent on-screen popularity, strangely, he did not appear in the comic book adaptation of the film. Anyway, it goes on and on and on, and then says, this crazy bird drives Donald nuts.
Yeah.
Not only in this film, but again in the cartoon short Clown of the Jungle, and then once more in Melody Time called Blame It on the Samba, where he attempts to cheer up the blue Donald Duck and Jose Carioca. And of course, in the in Three Caballeros, they have the Panchito instead of this
Yeah, they've got Panchito, who's like the Mexican rooster, right? Yeah, that other character who just doesn't appear.
Yeah.
In this one.
So basically, he's known for Blame It on the Samba, Clown of the Jungle, and the Three Caballeros.
Okay.
So according to this this Wikipedia.
Okay.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a name like in the way that Jose obviously does.
Yeah.
And so yeah, anyway, it basically he teaches Jose and Donald how to dance the samba, and then you have you have the Dinning sisters provide vocals with Ernesto Nazareth, and then at the very end you have an organist, Ethel Smith, that is, you see live action
yeah,
what's her name in Three Caballeros.
Yes.
And I thought it was kind of weird. I mean, I guess I'm just not used to that kind of organ music.
Oh yeah, it's weird. The music is very unusual for whatever reason. I think that in previous viewings, this has become a little tiresome for me, but for whatever, I don't know what kind of mood I was in, but I was just loving the samba music, and then that organ shows up, and it's such a different sound, as you said, it's such an unusual sonic kind of thing going on. But for what I don't know what was happening, Rachel, maybe I was just tired, or I was just, kind of lulled into a happy state. It's like, okay, this is great.
Yeah. It's true. It's like, what is this, a Queen song or what's going on here? Like, it was kind of weird, but it was fun. So then the last short is the longest one, 22 minutes, Pecos Bill.
Yes.
And you're correct in saying that Roy Rogers is the narrator of the story
Yes.
with his Sons of
The
Pioneers.
Sons of the Pioneers. Yeah.
And so then you have basically the story of Pecos Bill, and he is raised by coyotes. And so he, I like the line.
He's like,
Bill,
yeah.
he says, Bill was hungrier than a woodpecker with a headache. I like that. and you get a little story about how he meets his horse named the Widowmaker. And and then you also kind of learn about how he created gold in the mountains from the bad men that he defeated. Also, he dug the Rio Grande because he was hot in the desert. And also, he painted the desert from the Indians.
I just love it. All this kind of Texas lore,
yes,
is wrapped up into this story of Pecos Bill.
Yeah, and they tell you how they became the Lone Star State.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff is fun. And you had mentioned it. There kind of was a controversy about his smoking. Can you explain that?
Well, yeah. So Pecos Bill has a cigarette often in his mouth, adult Pecos Bill.
Sure.
And it's animated with wonderful style, because it's just kind of almost like sitting on his bottom lip, and moves up and down with his mouth and whatnot. Anyway, it's such an integral part of his character, and but smoking's controversial, and also especially in something that's designed for children, or for the whole family, but also the children are going to be watching this most likely. So in some previous home video releases, and I'm not sure the exact dates on these, but I think it was in one of the like a VHS release, and it also made it to one of the earlier DVD releases of Melody Time. The cigarette got removed. They digitally removed the cigarette from Pecos Bill.
It's so stupid because you've got a story here where he's shooting at things, and he's like, I mean, doing all kinds of stuff with a horse named Widowmaker, and he's and really you're going to be worried about the you're going to be worried about the cigarette. I mean, boy, how stupid do they think kids are? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's really interesting, that they did this. And again, just being hypersensitive. I mean, it reminds me of just I think a lot of pictures or photographs of Walt Disney himself. They've been altered to remove the cigarette.
Yeah.
That he was holding, and just think, wow, I mean, whatever. I mean, what are you going to say? Like, oh, he didn't smoke. I mean, he died of lung cancer. You know what I mean? It's like the man smoked. Yeah. So it's like you can't hide it, But I mean, I know that it's sensitive, and I don't wish to be flippant about it. But I'm just so happy that they chose to restore it.
Yeah, me too. And the version on Disney Plus, is the accurate version.
And and I like what Disney Plus does is they'll put a little statement in, and the parents or whoever wants to look at it, they can see what's going on. Just because again, these movies are products of their time period, and they're going to have some stuff that probably is not culturally appropriate as it was for when the films were made, and so I mean that's great, but they keep it in rather than try to remove this stuff or modify it. That makes me really happy.
I agree. And so basically, the story goes that he ends up falling in love with a girl named Slewfoot Sue.
Slewfoot Sue.
They fall in love first sight. They are quite the team together, and they get engaged, and and she is insistent upon having this giant bustle on for her dress, and she, through various things, because the horse hates her. Widowmaker is the appropriate name. and so he ends up kind of springing her off, and she ends up basically her bustle becomes like a trampoline.
Oh yeah.
And she ends up bumping all the way up to the moon.
Yeah.
So that is why the coyotes howl at the moon.
Howl at the moon, because it's Slewfoot Slew.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Pecos Bill is howling at the moon to get Slew back, and so the other coyotes howl with him.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the end of the story, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
It's just delightful, you know. Yeah, and as we talk about kind of that Texas lore, and I love the animation when Sleuth. Well, I love the animation of the whole thing, but I think particularly the quote unquote, I'm calling it camera work, but how they follow Sue as she's bouncing, is really, I think, inventive. The way that, you know, how they animated those segments, and it's really delightful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really fun, and I really like these sets of shorts. Like I said, my favorite is still definitely Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed for sure.
It's really nice. And so there we go. That's Melody Time. If you're listening, you'll have to let us know which one is your favorite, and if you've seen these shorts. I think that the package films are kind of forgotten. And so it's definitely something kind of fresh and different. And you should, if you have Disney Plus, you should definitely check
them out on Disney Plus. I mean, again, another cool thing that I'm so glad they put it on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
you know, because this is just one of those things that they could just not include, and they do. And I think hopefully, you know, if it's something that you haven't seen, definitely take the time to check it out, because it's not very long. I mean, isn't the runtime like kind of like an hour and 10 minutes or something? I mean, it's
78 minutes.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah.
75 minutes.
So totally worth checking out.
Definitely. Very good. Well, let's see what we're going to get for March.
Okay. So random, our hands are in the, it's the random number generator.
So we got number 9.
Oh, wow. We're doing another package film, fun and fancy free. We can get it over with.
Yeah. Our nice little venture into the world of Edgar Bergen and that creepy doll,
Charlie McCarthy.
So there we go. Next month, fun and fancy free, and we get the strangest song in the history of Disney animation. They say it with a slap. I'll never understand it.
Yeah.
So there we go. That'll be fun.
Yeah, bongo and fun and fancy free. Here we go.
Yes. All right, good. Well, that will be really fun. And so make sure you're following the podcast we're on iTunes, we're on all the major podcast apps, and we love your ratings and reviews over there. And then also on Twitter, we're at Disney Talking. So we'd love your comments and thoughts there. And then we also have our individual social media. Where can people find you, Stanford?
I'm on Twitter at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie blog and podcast at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, everywhere, on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm also at Paul Murky's podcast, so make sure to check that out. And we'll be back next month for Fun and Fancy Free.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, bye.